Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is not here with me this morning. It's early. It's very early. We're getting this to you as first thing as possible. I hope you are happy and healthy, doing the things you love with the people that you love doing them with. Please do me some favors, guys, as we bring to you this Wednesday morning Tottenham transfer news, views, and clues update. Please smash the like button for me if you enjoy the content. Hit the subscribe button as well if you haven't already. And even if you have double checked, you still are. Hashtag YouTube shenanigans. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's news, views, and clues. And guys, we have some outlandish transfer news. I'm a little bit skeptical to even bring it up, but I've got to bring it to you. It's in the news. Doesn't matter whether it's real or not. If it's out there, I'm going to bring it to your attention. And this one is juicy if true. According to THFC reports that are actually quoting the wrong guy. This isn't the guy who's got 450 followers. This guy is the guy, Gerard Romero, who has 1.2 million followers. And we are talking about Frankie de Jong. FC Barcelona has received an offer from Tottenham Hotspur for Frankie de Jong. The operation would be around 60 million euros, including variables, and 4 years of contract for the Dutchman. The player would have the same salary as at Barcelona if he meets certain objectives. Look, we can just have a quick look at the comments. Clearly nonsense, seeing as his wages were an issue for Manchester United. This is clearly waffle because he's on huge wage, unfortunately. Isn't he on about 700,000 euros a week? Listen, it says, if it's true, it says the player would have the same salary as at Barcelona if he meets certain objectives, not necessarily if he doesn't. It depends on how stringent, on how difficult those objectives are to meet, I would imagine. But listen, let's just take a quick glance at Frankie de Jong. For those of you who have been sleeping under a rock, this has been one of the best midfielders, best central midfielders who can obviously play in the six as well in world football over the last 3 or 4, 5 years. Plays for Barcelona. There was a long drawn out transfer battle with him going to Manchester United last summer. It didn't eventually happen for the reasons that those comments were already saying. I'd be absolutely gobsmacked, and I think this is largely dismissible, but a boy can dream. A boy can dream. A wonderful, wonderful, cultured player who, look, a lot of people are describing Lucas Bergvall as the next Frankie de Jong. Let's have a quick little look-see at his stats just before we move on to the kind of the next story that I haven't actually brought to your attention. If you look at this, here we go. Look, as a passer, I'm not sure there's anybody in the top 5 leagues that has as many green bars in the top 3 or 4 percentile as this particular guy. He's on the ball. He controls the pace and play. And wherever it goes to his destination. He is quite simply one of the best passers of the ball in world football. He contributes getting forward in terms of the actions that he operates on the pitch for Barcelona. He's in the top sort of 10 to 15 percentile for shot creating actions, for goal creating actions, at least half a time or one time every 2 games. He is involved in something that leads to a goal. Quite sensational with the possession. And look, it'd be most teams' dreams to have a player like Frankie de Jong. But in all likelihood, it's just not happening. Of course, it isn't happening. I think he's on something ridiculous. As that guy said, I thought it was less than that, about 600, 500K a week, something bonkers. But Barcelona are in financial distress, and perhaps there is some sort of truth to the idea that he might be leaving Barcelona. But whether he would come to Tottenham or not, I'm not entirely sure. Peter O'Rourke, the man who has more exclusive than Bugsy Malone's OnlyFans account, just for what it's worth, guys, has come out today with an exclusive that's talking about Frankie de Jong, but not for Tottenham, but for Manchester United, saying that Frankie de Jong, the door is open for Manchester United to complete the signing after agreement. Long-term admirers, Manchester United and Chelsea are well placed to land Barcelona star Frankie de Jong, sources have told Football Insider. It's been widely reported that Barca will look to sell their 26-year-old in the summer window. A well-placed source has told Football Insider that the Catalan giants will be forced to sell key stars if they are to make their own signings this term. It is believed Barcelona's stance on allowing de Jong to leave is a real opening for top Premier League sides. Manchester United and Chelsea are long-time admirers of the Netherlands international and have made attempts to bring him to England in the past. Indeed, United agreed a fee with Barcelona in the summer of 2022 before a deal collapsed after extensive negotiations. Both sides are now keeping close tabs on the situation and the summer approaches. A well-placed source reveals that Premier League sides will have a real advantage in the race for De Jong, as not many other European outfits could fund a deal. I'll be entirely honest, I'm not entirely sure how Manchester United can fund a deal for Frankie de Jong, even with the expected input of, what is it, £250 million from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Not all of that money is dedicated towards the transfer budget from what I've read. I could be wrong on that, but from what I've been hearing or reading, a lot of that money is sort of to help with some infrastructure payments. And of course, they are looking to get that Todibo as well, Jean-Claire Todibo, from the club that Sir Jim Ratcliffe owns. And so being able to finance both the purchase of the player and the salary of both of these two, I'm sure that's not the only bit of business that Manchester United would do. I just wonder whether or not Manchester United's financial situation is that strong. I think it hasn't been strong for a long time, clearly, but whether or not, even with the injection of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's cash, they will be able to fund and finance replacing that extensive salary that Frankie de Jong has. And the same would have to be said for Chelsea. Surely, in order for Chelsea to be able to pay for them, it might not be necessarily around the transfer fee, but it certainly would be a shock to see them be able to pay somewhere close to £500,000-600,000 a week or £25 million a year for a player, given how much money they've already spent and how little revenue they have coming into the club from traditional media and campaign finance money from things like the Champions League. Time will tell. We shall see. This isn't a topic for Tottenham fans, so we're going to move on. But yeah, it'd be interesting, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Frankie de Jong, do you think, if any club is positioned with the ability to potentially do it, if they wanted to do it, then Tottenham possibly could do it. But whether or not Daniel Levy wants to break the bank and break the wage structure, I'm not entirely convinced. And I think those sorts of players are just a league above. A player that probably isn't a league above is Pedro Neto. And guys, we have heard this morning, I know this has been a story that's been percolating, and I haven't really spoken about it too much because, I've just been busy, if I'm entirely honest. And I feel like everyone has already said what there has been needed to be said about the topic. But today, according to the Daily Mail, the Mail Sport, Pedro Neto is set to leave Wolves this summer to help the club meet FFP rules. Tottenham are keen to do business and bring Pedro Neto to North London this summer, with Ange Postecoglou said to be a big fan of the winger. Let's have a quick little look-see at Pedro Neto stats. Again, guys, I'm absolutely convinced that you are not going to need any reminding of really how great this guy is when he plays. Of course, the major issue about Pedro Neto as a transfer target is not, does he fit Ange ball? The answer to that is yes. It's not, do we need a player of his caliber in that position? The answer is 100% unequivocally yes. And would I like to see him at Tottenham? The answer is yes, as long as there are no more fears, or hopefully no more fears, that Tottenham's concerns would have been reassured, placated around his injury issues, because he does have them. But you know what, guys? I'm increasingly finding out that all of the top players that I will be looking at this summer and have been speaking fondly about over this season, players like Michael Olise and Eberechi Eze, I personally feel like those guys are also very, very, very concerning with regards to their injury profiles. And I think Dave, Irish Hotspur Dave, shout out to him, made a really good point on the Devil's Advocate yesterday, that there's the possible reason why they keep having this recurring frequent injuries to their hamstrings is possibly because Roy Hodgson is under such a strain and a struggle to try and find creativity, that the second that these players are even remotely ready, that they're rushed back too soon. And that may be why they are being triggered. But Pedro Neto, let's have a quick look-see at why people like Pedro Neto. It's really his goal-creating actions, bearing in mind the style of play that Wolves have, bearing in mind, that a lot of the time they try to be a bit more expansive as games go on, but they do set up very tactically considerate, and so it's not always easy for players at Wolves, creative players at Wolves, to be able to get on the score sheet. They do sometimes struggle. But when Wolves are clicking, if this guy's playing, it's usually because of him. And if you look at the shot-creating actions that he's been involved in, 4.39 shot-creating actions per 90 for a team that doesn't score that many goals is pretty impressive. Shot-creating actions from set pieces, at least nearly won every game. Nearly won every single game. Goal creating actions. He's in the top 4 percentile in the top 5 leagues. 8 times in 10, he will be involved in a goal that Wolves score. Very, very impressive. He's a wonderful, wonderful, accomplished winger that you'd love to see. Let's look at what he can do. We're looking for people that can drive at players. He can play off the right. He can play off the left. This guy can really play quite frankly anywhere, in my opinion. I think he's really that good. Progressive carries 5 times per 90. Carries into the final third 3.5 times per 90 in the top 15 or 13 percentile. Progressive carrying distance. Again, for a player that plays in this system, in the system he plays for, you have to bake the context into the stacks to see how valuable that would be. And if he can do 139 yards of carrying the ball progressively in a Wolves outfit, what could he do with a little bit more possession that Tottenham can offer him and a little bit more offensive desire in the kind of strategic setup of the team? A wonderful, wonderful player. And just for what it's worth, not this is particularly meaningful, but penalty kicks won. There's no one more likely in the top 5 leagues, or very few people in the top 5 leagues more likely to win a penalty kick. He gets one every 10 games played. And you know what? Tottenham are a team that don't get enough penalty kicks. I think we're only on one this season. That was Sonny that he converted against Newcastle United. We know Pedro Neto is a wonderful player, guys, and a player that I would love at Tottenham Hotspur. And the Daily Mail are saying this morning that he's going to leave in the summer because Wolves are one of those teams that are in the kind of conversation around FFP. So, guys, it's what's interesting about that, about this idea from the Daily Mail that Wolves are in financial distress. The FFP is a concern. They might be right. I haven't looked through Wolves' financial statements, but I have been reading an article or two that suggest or that try to outline every team's FFP position. And for what it's worth, this particular article has some information in it that I don't particularly agree with regarding its stance on Arsenal's FFP position and Manchester United's FFP position. So I'm not entirely sure of who knows what, and there's not really enough information out there about exactly what position people are in. We'll have to wait and see in the summer for that. But for what it's worth, the Daily Mail are presenting this idea that Wolverhampton Wanderers are needing to sell because of FFP. I'm just going to throw out this particular article just to kind of give you the balance that we try to bring here. And this is from Give Me Sport and their analysis. And this is a score out of 5. Ability to spend is 4 out of 5. Wolves returned a positive PSR for the 2019 to 2022 3-year period of £26.2 million before any exemptions are added back. So they have some room to maneuver in the market for a couple of years if they see the need to. The turnaround under Gary O'Neill looks to have pushed them clear of the relegation battle, which will be a huge boost as well. And further stability in the Premier League in years to come will keep the financial position healthy. Things are looking up at Wolves as their financial turmoil of a year ago is behind them, and O'Neill builds a much more optimistic picture of life in the Premier League. They refused to cave into big financial demands in signings in January, which is a good move. And in the summer, we will see them put efforts into making a signing at centre forward to bring the team together as a more cohesive unit with more threat. Decisions need to be made on what to do with Kalajic, I don't know how you say that guy's name, and Fabio Silva, but they are likely to cash in on both if possible. Their biggest problem will be holding on to Pedro Neto, with Arsenal already taking a fancy, but even if he goes, they will reinvest. So according to Give Me Sport, who do actually back up their kind of suppositions with some data, they suggest that there isn't any FFP concerns to worry about, although at the same time, in the same sort of block of content, they're saying things are looking up at Wolves as their financial turmoil of a year ago is behind them. So if they had financial turmoil a year ago, but they managed to have a profitable 3-year period, I'm not entirely sure. And like I say, I haven't done the research on Wolves' FFP situation. It's largely irrelevant because if Pedro Neto is going to leave, it doesn't necessarily have to be because of FFP pressures. It might just be because he wants to move on to a bigger challenge, and a challenge where he can play and show his best parts of his game at a more competitive level, including things like the Champions League. And at Tottenham, hopefully he'll be able to do that. At Arsenal, he'll probably be able to do that as well. But Arsenal have got bigger fish to fry. They need an out-and-out striker. They need some help maybe to replace Thomas Partey, who just can't seem to stay fit. There's arguments that they could, that they might need some work in the fullback position as well. And there'll be lots of changes at Arsenal, but we don't know whether or not their FFP situation is strong or insecure, and how much more money, if any, their owners are willing to put into to the solution. It will be an interesting summer. I feel like Arsenal and Tottenham and a few other teams at the top end of the table are all going to be going after the same sort of players if they are available. And let me know your thoughts, guys. Frankie de Jong, Pedro Neto, are either of them realistic? Do you have any concerns about Pedro Neto's injury concerns? He has got some historical problems with that regard. But also, if we're looking in other directions, as I said, Michael Elise and Eberechi Eze, those guys, I'd love them at Tottenham on paper, but in reality, these guys are also injured all of the time. And Tottenham don't have a brilliant track record with getting injured players back. Our medical team does need a little bit more scrutiny, I think, from some areas of the club. But in any event, that is your Tottenham transfer news, views, and clues of the day. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.